Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're diving into Luke 15, which is the chapter of the lost things. It reminded me when Ellie's my youngest, she's now 14, but she was probably about 5 or 6. We went to Disney World and she had a loose tooth. And she was terrified of the tooth fairy, terrified of losing her tooth, terrified of it falling out. Like the whole idea just kind of freaked her out a little bit. And we got to meet Tinkerbell on that Disney trip. And Tinkerbell was amazing because I mentioned that she was going to lose her tooth and she was a little bit afraid of it. And Tinkerbell did an amazing job. And she was just like, oh my goodness, I love lost things. And the tooth fairy loves lost things too. You know, that's why she gathers your teeth so that she can have it, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that next day, I think that was our last day. I mean, Ellie, like, from that point on, she would like yank her teeth out. It gives me the heebie-jeebies, but she would yank it out, put it under her pillow. She was so excited because the tooth fairy loved lost things and loved her teeth for that matter. So, I just think about how the Lord loves lost things as well. He loves lost people. And he goes to so much extent to find his people and to bring them home. And so these are small parables on things that are lost. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate losing things. Like, I'm not a fan of lost things. There's nothing will get me more frustrated and more angry, usually with myself, sometimes with my children or my husband, than not being able to find something when I know I had it there are so many times where I have put something in a specific place so that I can remember that I put it in that specific place, but then I don't remember what the specific place was. Drives me up the wall. Nothing gets me mad fast than not being able to find something. So I need to be more like Jesus, I guess, and love lost things, So basically all of these parables show us really what God's like, a lover of lost things, and a God who loves you, who looks for you. And so when we ask ourselves, what happens when I mess up, or are we able to come back to him? How is he going to allow us to come back after we mess up so bad? This chapter really shows that picture beautifully. And these parables show that so much. There's two types of groups listening to Jesus. We've got tax collectors and sinners. And then we've got Pharisees and the religious leaders. And they're hearing these parables and these stories. Remember, the tax collectors were corrupt. They were traitors. The Pharisees are respected for their religious devotion. And so the Pharisees complain, well, this man's eating with sinners and tax collectors, right? They don't understand why Jesus would spend his time with those kind of people. And this sets up the entire chapter. Because what Jesus is revealing is God's heart, his compassion, his love for the lost. God moves towards people, not away from them. Even if they're far away from them, he still moves towards them. So the first parable is the parable of the lost sheep, and Jesus tells a story about the shepherd with the 100 sheep, but one goes missing. And he leaves the 99 to find it. Shepherds were common, ordinary people, and sheep were valuable, but not really smart. And sheep are known for wandering. That's why God talks about us, his people, as sheep all the time, because we have a tendency to wander. That's why in Exodus, the Israelites, it's called the Israelite wandering, because they're in fields, they're in the desert, and they're wandering. And it's not that they didn't have a shepherd, it's he allowed them to wander so that they could learn to be dependent on him. And that's the whole point of a sheep. A sheep is so dependent on his shepherd. A shepherd leads, a shepherd guides, a shepherd protects. And a shepherd will, I've heard that a shepherd, if a sheep keeps wandering, it will break its little leg and put it around its shoulders and carry the sheep until it learns the heartbeat and the voice of his shepherd, so that it will not go far from the shepherd again. That's a whole nother message in and of itself, you guys. But the shepherd, this shepherd in this case, in this parable, he goes after that one sheep. The one sheep. He goes after it until he finds it. And it says he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. Every single person matters to God. Even the one who has walked away, the one who has rejected God, the one who has messed up over and over again, the one who has wandered again and again and again, he or she matters to God. God is the good shepherd, and he has a love that pursues each and every one of us. And it says that there's more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents. All of heaven rejoices when one sinner repents. God doesn't ignore the lost. He is a God who pursues the lost. So then we see the lost coin, and the woman has 10 silver coins, but she loses one, and she sweeps the whole house until she finds it, and she rejoices over it. The coin may have been part of like a wedding dowry, so it's deeply valuable, deeply personal. And so she searches diligently and intentionally. She's looking for this coin. God doesn't passively wait. He actively seeks. He searches up and down and everywhere and all around. He's intentionally pursuing because he puts value, great value, on each of us. And look again, we see that it says, "There's rejoice with me. I found the coin of loss." The joy before, it says, "I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner." So what we know is that every time a sinner repents, there is joy in all of heaven. Even the angels rejoice because we're so valuable. He seeks us so personally, and all in heaven know the value of one that is lost and then is found. And so then we have one of the most famous parables, which is the prodigal son. A younger son asks for his inheritance early, which is extremely disrespectful. Basically, it's completely dishonoring of his father and of his family. It's like being a thief, basically. Okay, they've stolen. Not only has he stolen the inheritance culturally, you could say, but he's dishonored his father because he's basically saying, "I'm going to take my stuff and I'm going to leave, and I never want to see you again." And in that culture, especially, the sons were to care and honor their fathers and grandfathers. You care for them. There's wisdom attached, there's love attached, and there's honor attached to that. And so to just leave, basically he's putting all of the health and the taking care of his elderly parent on his brother, which is probably one reason why his brother is having issues with him later on. But it's just very, very dishonoring. So, and the crazy part is, and when we get to this at the end, when he comes back, because of the way that this went down and the dishonor, like the father had every right to stone him. And the community itself would kind of be upset for the father, and they would stone him. And so there's kind of that implication. So this guy, the son, leaves and he loses everything. And it says he loses it from unrighteous or reckless living, that is. So imagine the worst of the worst. More than likely debauchery, prostitution, all of that stuff. He just wastes it all. And then it says that he came to his senses. He's sitting around. He's so poor at this point. It's gotten so bad. We don't know how long it's been. It's gotten so bad. He wants to eat what the pigs eat. He's like feeding. He's a servant for this pig farmer. So we see basically what that's supposed to tell us is that he has gone so far from his faith, so far from his father's home, that he's now a servant or a slave, possibly. He hires himself out, so he's not getting paid anything. He's feeding pigs, which again represents sin and idolatry and all of those bad things. And he's so far gone that he's so hungry. He's so desperate that even what the pigs are eating looks edible to him. So he finally comes to his senses and he's like, my father's servants have enough to eat and they're treated better than this. I'm going to go back, even though I've sinned against him. And, it's like he came to, we say this a lot, he comes to the end of his rope, right? But he's going to go back as a servant, not as a son. And so here's the shocker. The father runs to him. First of all, in that culture, men did not run. We don't run for fun. Only the wicked run, according to Proverbs. So to see a man, an older gentleman, running to a son would have been shocking. Shocking. And like I said, the other part is that if he doesn't get to him first, the community could come out and stone him. So there's a desperate wanting to save his son from his sins. I love the fact that the father more than likely had been looking for his son. Standing at the top, Jewish houses or Jewish cities, they would have, the top parts of the cities where you could stand and look out. He may have been looking for him every day. Some of you may have prodigals. I think that we are to wait. I know it's not an easy wait, but I also believe that God is faithful, and we just have to keep looking for them. Like what are you doing? And I think for the father to go out to the top of the city or the top of his house or wherever and actively look for his son daily was such a step of faith. Does that make sense? Like his faith told him to wait and to look for him. To look for him. So the running was pure joy on one hand, right? And the desire, this is what we've been waiting for, the excitement of it all. So I think for some of us, if you have a prodigal, I encourage you to do something. You're waiting on one hand for them to come home, to come back, to see the Lord. But then on the other hand, I think you have to be like the prodigal's father. What are you doing to take an active step of faith? And that may be, I don't know, every situation is so different. But maybe it is being a bridge to your son or daughter. Maybe it's just whether, depending on the situation, sending a text of, I'm always praying for you, I love you. Or, inviting them to dinner without conversations of whatever's difficult or not aligned with whatever it is that's going on in your life or in their life. But just sharing a meal. Moving toward them in some way. Whether your heart moves towards them or whether you're literally moved toward them. I don't know, but it's something to ask the Lord. What can I do to look for my son and my daughter like the father did? So, God, what I love about this story is God doesn't wait to shame them. The prodigal isn't there shaming his son. But there is a repentance that happens. And the grace is what welcomes them in, doesn't reject them. And the restoration brings the son back. And the Father says, this son of mine was dead, but he is alive again. Both literally and figuratively. We can always come back to God, and he's going to receive us with love, not rejection. There will have to be repentance, of course, but the grace welcomes us. Of course, the story doesn't end there. Then there's the older brother who's angry, and the older brother stayed and he obeyed and he did everything that was right. And he doesn't understand why we're celebrating this guy. What are you talking about? And this represents the Pharisees. Remember at the beginning, we had tax collectors and sinners and we had Pharisees. The Pharisees, they were right. They did stay. They are close to God outwardly, but their hearts are so far from God inwardly. And that's the older brother. The older brother focused on fairness. He doesn't understand grace, and he resents mercy, just like the Pharisees. The Father responds and he says, everything that I have is yours. But that doesn't mean we can't celebrate your brother. We can't miss God's heart by focusing on the rules instead of grace. Grace is the only way that forgiveness works. God pursues the lost. He values every single person. He welcomes us back with grace, and he invites us to share in his heart in this way. So no matter what, whether you feel far from God or he is pursuing you. If you've messed up, you can come back. Even if you've done everything right, remember that his heart is a heart of mercy and of grace. God's heart is full of love, and he pursues us. And there is joy when even one person turns toward him.